I can't believe this worked. It's so simple. It worked multiple times, and we're about to find out what that is. Let's take a look at this TikTok video.
I was always told watercolor is permanent. If you mess up, you can't fix it. Well, guess what? You can.
So let's get something clear. I tested that hack, and I could say with confidence, it does not work. What the magic eraser was good for was before the watercolor dried. Once the watercolor was set into the paper and dry, there was nothing that was going to take that out. And what happened when I tried it is I microdermed or microabrased the paper, and you were able to see the damage in the paper. So no, I don't recommend that hack once the paper dries, but before, it worked perfectly. So for that hack, I only give it a 50%. So many times I have used tape on my edges only to have a tape failure. And for painting, there's a lot of things you can do to make sure that that tape line stays nice and tight and straight. When you're working on a wall, when you're working on a canvas, those things work. But when we're working out of coloring books or we're working off of a cardstock, even some better artist papers, there's a lot that fails when it comes to the edges, and I wanted to do better. After I tried to get the watercolor off the edge and I peeled up the tape, it was so bumpy, and I almost never put tape on my pictures because it always happens this way. The edges don't come out clean, and even worse, the tape, even though I use artist tape, I still get damaged. So that got me thinking, what can I do to protect the paper and get a smooth line? Now, I've heard 1,001 different ways of doing this. One is to take your tape and put it on your pants, peel it off, and that would diminish the stickiness of the tape. Well, yeah, that doesn't work, and anybody who's tried it knows this, that one, the fuzz will cause the seal on the tape to fail, so that doesn't matter. Two, wherever it does stick to the paper, it still gets tore up. I would never put masking tape on anything that I use, but I did test this, and you're about to find out what I did that's different than anybody else, and nobody has thought of this. I wanted to protect the paper. I was sitting there thinking, well, what can I put on the paper that I could draw on will protect the edges of the paper? And then I thought of it. Workable fixative. Yep. Good old workable fixative. So I performed some tests. I took workable fixative and I put it on half the page. Half the page did not have it. When it comes to paint and colored pencils and graphite, using a workable fixative on the whole entire page is going to do nothing except increase your tooth. And that includes coloring book paper. And believe it, I have taped up pages in coloring books that I have wanted to hang up, or I knew that I was going to have an edge on. Having an edge is very important, especially when you're working, because it gives you somewhere to touch without touching your paper. And the grease and any dirt that's on your hands will go on your paper, especially when you're working on a project for like 10, 20 hours. And believe me, art takes that long. After a while, you've touched it so many times, it's grimy. So when you tape up your edges, you have somewhere to hold the paper, and you know that you can peel that off at the end and you are going to have very clean edges. It gives you a frame around the picture so that when you do go to frame your picture, if you're going to frame it, that they can actually put the frame on the picture properly. So that border is really important. But I admit I haven't been doing it because I get paper damage. Not only does the paper not do a perfect edge, okay, I can live with that, but the paper gets torn. And I'll show you on here what I'm talking about. And I'm sure anybody who's worked with tape knows what this is. That's my paper. And it could tear, and it could tear bad. I've had bad tears on watercolors that while you can fix it, it's never perfect. So let's get it so that it's perfect. When you're working on watercolor, you want the water to absorb into the paper. So all I did was take another piece of paper and I covered up my edge, sprayed the edge, let it dry, and then put the tape over that. And I want to show you the difference because it was huge. This is cardstock. No, I'm sorry, this is the watercolor paper. This is the unfixative side. And if you could see, look at the line where it took up the tape, where it took off the watercolor or the paint. I've already showed you what it did to the watercolor picture that I had just done quickly before when I was testing the other hack. The edges were not good. And this is rated for artists. Look at the paper having been torn up along the edge. Now, Frog brand tape is artist grade. It's a good brand. In fact, it's my go-to. I don't usually use blue masking tape by Scotch. I feel it's too tacky. The Frog has much less tack and a really good seal. But look what it looks like when I pull the paper up. Now we're going to look at the sealed side. Okay? You can't tell on the paper that you've sealed it. Look at the difference between the two sticky sides. That is a huge difference. And yet you can't see it. Look at this, the paper, the thin one. This is artist grade. It's my 1/4 inch tape that I always use. It's perfect. Look how clean it came off the paper. My line is fantastic. Now, another trick, and I tested it out, and I saw this part of it on the web, on some website. And I've seen it on YouTube too, using washi tape. I used to think people used washi tape because it's pretty. So when you're doing the picture, you have a pretty border instead of looking at like ugly tape. And that's what I used to think, but it's not true. Washi tape is made with rice paper, and it is way gentler on the paper. And when I tried it, I will admit that even above everything, using the washi tape was the best stuff that I did. It made the cleanest line. It was almost perfect on both the treated and the non-treated side. So washi tape should and will be replaced now for me. It's a little bit more expensive. It's more of a crafting tape, but for art in general, and I'm talking across the board, whether you're using paint, graphite, marker, you name it, you name the medium and the paper, washi tape performed the best. Don't want the expense of the washi tape, and I understand they don't give you a lot. Really only get a couple of pictures out of a roll, and it's more decorative. It equaled in performance the workable fixative, and you can do hundreds of pictures. Even when I used masking tape, which I don't recommend to anybody to use on any of your mediums, masking tape is just too heavy. The whole entire thing, and I can't show it on, I can't show it because I could feel it. It feels like velvet is underneath it. It totally took off the top layer of my paper. On the workable side, see how this is not sticky anymore? Look. It's not sticky. It's barely anything. On here, this is the workable fixative side. You could see the shine that it did not take the paper off. So that's all adhesive. It came off the back of the paper, but it didn't come off of me. And you can hear that the adhesive is still on the paper, not on my paper. Huge difference. So this is with watercolor paper, which is notorious, and everybody always tapes up their watercolor pictures. So I tried it on cardstock, which is what a lot of colorists use, and I got the same exact results. In fact, here is the blue tape. This is the blue, and it wasn't horrible, but still, you You can even hear it tearing the paper. It feels velvety. Frog tape was a little bit better. It came off a lot cleaner. Up, it's tearing the paper now. And this is the second time around, so you could see on it, there's some of the paint it took up. You could just see it's not good. And on the workable fixative side, look how clean. Now, I didn't seal it as well as I should have. This was the first test I did when I was just like, oh, this isn't going to work. I got more serious with the other tests. Look how clean this line is. And I probably could have gotten it cleaner because I didn't think this was really going to make a difference. And look how clean this line is. Look how clean that is. Look at this side of it. This was a freaking mess. It actually tore the paper, and you could see where there's a significant tear going along this line. And this is the stuff I use regularly. Not anymore. Now, the last paper I used, knock everything off my desk. I didn't save the tape, unfortunately. This was the second test that I did. And this is just black mixed media. And while this was the best out of all of them for taping up, still, there's a time limit on it where the manufacturers say you're only allowed to use it for X amount of hours. And I think it's like 14. I wrote it down somewhere. I really should be more organized. Okay, you can only keep the blue tape on for 14 days, and the frog tape you can keep on for 21 before it starts to do damage to whatever it's, the adhesive starts to dry and it becomes a mess. I've got a picture that I'm working on now. I've had for a month. I didn't tape the edges. I regret it now. I wish I had started to tape the edges, but I've been working on that one for a month. It's my Mandalorian picture, which is almost done, and I'm going to show you. There is a final, well, you can see how perfect it was, and look at this on the fixed side. It's perfect. There is another trick that I'm going to tell you about, and this is an old trick. Use a blow dryer. If you have your tape sticking to your paper, heat it up. Blow it, use a light heat gun, and that will liquefy the adhesive and it will come off. Unfortunately, I've never tried that. I really should have, but I have a feeling that once you start melting adhesive on paper, you're going to start getting the gum from the tape on the paper. But now, there's not going to be a problem because all you have to do is spray your edges with the fixative, slap your tape on, and make good art. And with that, I will see you in my next video, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.